What's up YouTube, it's Pico.Blurred back again with another video. The other day I got a comment on one of my videos asking to kind of go into different barber terminology, and I realized that I've been making all of these tutorials for beginner barbers, for the new barbers that are just starting out. I'm making tutorials so they kind of know how to go about different styles of haircuts. But I realized that I never went over kind of the basic barber terminology. So as I'm doing those tutorials and I'm talking about different aspects of the haircut, some of you may not know what I'm saying in those videos. So a great comment. I'm gonna go over some basic barber terminology that you might not know, different styles of haircut that a client might ask for. For example, someone may come in and they'll ask you to give them a high bald fade with no C-cups, sharp vertical bars, and no edge up. But what does that really mean? In this video, I'm going to be going over that stuff so you guys will have kind of a basic knowledge of the different terminologies that I'll use in my tutorials, and basic haircuts that a client might ask you for, and you need to know what they're talking about, or that you can explain to them what these different kind of things mean. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So number one, what is a taper and what is a fade? Well, if we're talking about technical terms, a fade basically is a taper. A taper just means taking your hair from short to long, and a fade would be a drastic change. So going from skin to longer hair up top. Now, if we're talking about in a barbershop setting and kind of the hairstyle that goes along with a taper, that's where the difference is going to be when you're talking to your clients. So a taper normally would just be in your temple area and the back of your neck. A fade would go all the way around your head. And now when we're talking about tapers and fades, there are different iterations of each. So let's talk about tapers first. There's different types of tapers. Obviously, you have your skin tapers, which go from bald skin all the way up to longer hair. You can also have shadow tapers where you still get like an edge up. You have the sideburn edged up, nice and neat, but it goes from short to longer hair. And then there's different levels to your taper. So they have low tapers, they have mid tapers, and they have high tapers. Now, typically when you're talking about low to high tapers, it depends on where you're putting in your bald line. So if I want a low taper, I'm gonna set my bald line pretty low, and then I'm gonna keep my fade generally pretty low towards the ear and not raise it so much towards the top of the head. When I'm talking about a mid taper, that's going, you're stretching your blends out a little bit more, and you're starting to go a little bit higher in that temple area. Now, when we're talking about a high taper, that's usually you're bringing your fade up pretty high towards the top of the head, and you're also starting your bald line generally pretty high when you're talking about a high taper. Now, when we're talking about fades, the same kind of things apply. So if I want a skin or a bald fade, the haircut is gonna go all the way around the head, unlike the taper. You're gonna start off with skin at the bottom and then have longer hair towards the top. Now, if we're talking about a shadow fade is basically a fade where you're not taking it all the way to skin. You're still gonna have some hair at the bottom of the blend. That way you can get an edge up all the way around the head, but it's still gonna blend gradually into the top of the head. And there are levels to your fades as well. You can have a low fade, you can have a mid fade, and you can have a high fade. But then with fades, unlike tapers, tapers are pretty much kind of set like that. Fades can have a little bit of altercations even to the level. So you can have something like a mid drop fade. Basically, a mid drop fade is you have a mid fade, but you're dropping it towards the back of the head to keep hair above the occipital bone. Now, what the occipital bone is that bone in the back of the head that kind of protrudes out and it kind of shapes the client's head, and it shapes the style of haircut that you want to be doing. Now, if they have a super protrusive occipital bone, you kind of want to flare out your haircuts just so it covers that area. If you bring your fades too high above that occipital bone, it's going to throw off the shape of the haircut. So you want to be careful about that. Now, when I'm talking about a parietal ridge, what is that? A parietal ridge is basically where the top of your head, the apex, meets the side of your head, where it starts to round out. Typically, when you're talking about male haircuts, masculine haircuts, you want to keep bulk around the parietal ridge because you want your haircut to be square. Square is a very masculine shape. So when you're dealing with male clients and you want to get a masculine shaped haircut, that's what we're talking about. You want to keep it square around the parietal ridge. When I'm doing my tapers and when I'm doing my fades, I bring it up to the parietal ridge area, not going past that, because then you're going to change the shape of the haircut and it's not going to look as masculine. Usually when I'm setting in my bald line to start my mid fade, I kind of set it in the middle of the C cup. Now, what's the C cup? The C cup is the curve where your sideburn meets your vertical bar. Your vertical bar is just the vertical line of hair that comes down from your front edge up. So with the C cup, that's where it meets. That corner is where your C cup is, where it makes that kind of C curve from your vertical bar down to your sideburn. When I'm doing my different styles of fades, where I put my bald line kind of depends on that C cup and that vertical bar. When I'm doing a lower or a mid fade, my C cup is usually going under the corner where the C cup meets the vertical bar, because I want to keep hair and darkness around that line. So when I come to edge up the C cup, it's nice and dark. You can clearly see the defined line, and it's going to be super sharp for your client. It depends on the client, because if you have a client with a long vertical bar and a short C cup, you can get away with putting your bald line on that corner. For me, for example, if you're doing a fade on me, you'll see that I have pretty short vertical bars and a really long C cup. So when I'm putting in my bald line for myself, I usually go pretty low on the C cup, or if I'm gonna have it a little bit higher, I go about halfway on the C cup, and that's where I put in my bald line all the way around the head. If you're a client that has a really long vertical bar, then you can get away with putting your bald line a little bit higher, stretching out your blends a little bit higher. And if you have a client that has a really long vertical bar, you might wanna do a high fade with no C cup, because they have enough hair right here that it goes down pretty low and they don't need a C cup. So that's when clients usually ask for a high fade with no C cups, because their vertical bars are really pretty long. And if you, especially for clients that are thinning up top or have longer forehead than they used to, if their hair is receding a bit, they won't ask for a C cup. They'll ask for just the vertical bars, because if you add a C cup to the haircut, it's gonna make their forehead look even longer. So to make it look a little bit shorter, they get rid of that C cup by having a high fade. And then so the vertical bars are only this long versus this long, where the C cup would meet the vertical bar. So you kind of have to gauge your client's C cups and vertical bars, and that'll help you determine what type of fade or taper that looks best for them. Sometimes they already know. If they already know what they're asking for, just give them what they ask for, and then you throw your own touches on that. But if they don't know what suits them, that's where you, as the professional barber, have to come in and use your expertise and figure out what would look best for that particular client. And you may be asking yourself, my client came in, he wants a mid fade, but how do I know where mid is? And that kind of depends on the barber. Everybody has their own style of cutting hair. Everybody kind of has their own flair that they put on the haircut. Some barbers may have a little bit higher mid-fade than you. Some barbers may have a little bit lower mid-fade than you. It all depends on your personal touch. For me, when I'm doing a mid-fade, my bald line stays pretty low, and then I stretch out my guidelines so I can get a good gradient blend. But the main majority of the fade is happening pretty much in the middle of the head. So I kind of split the head into 3 sections. I have my middle point line where the middle of the head is, and then I split it into thirds. So below that middle line, that's where you would have your kind of low fades. Above that line, that's where you have your higher fades. And then you can have, like I said, you can have mid drop. So my mid fades go along that equator, if you want to call it that, but then they drop towards the back. So that's where the drop comes in. A drop just means that you're dropping it in the back to keep hair above that occipital bone we talk about. And that's pretty much all the basic barber terminology that I can think of. Basic ways on starting your haircuts, the difference between fades and tapers, the different styles of tapers and fades. Hopefully that helps you have just a basic knowledge of doing men's haircuts. And that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you could take something from this and figure out how to improve on your haircuts, knowing how to do your client consultation, talking to them, making sure that you guys come together and give your client the best haircut possible. If you could, like this video, drop a comment if you have any questions about barbering or hair in general. I'm here to help you guys. And if you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate the support. It helps the channel grow. It helps push it out to more barbers and more beginner barbers so they can have help on their barbering journey. And it's free, so why not? But it's your boy Pico.Blurred, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.